1 minute ago. Diddy's white party menu exposed. What they served will make you sick. It began on a Tuesday. The kind of quiet Tuesday that no one remembers until it becomes a date you never forget. I'd been cooking in the city for years. Nothing glamorous, private events, back-of-house banquets, a few celebrity gigs. But the offer that came through that afternoon was different. Confidential contract, triple-rate 4-day event, the recruiter said. I blinked at the email. There was no name, no brand, no chef references, just an address, a signature that read, Mr. Lee, and the word reflection. Later that evening, I was driven in silence to a hilltop estate outside the city. The gates opened automatically, no intercom. The car coasted up a curved driveway, lined with lights that hummed but never flickered. The mansion wasn't a house. It was a fortress, 3 towers, marble arches, and guards who didn't smile. Inside, I met a woman in gray gloves. She didn't give her name. Your kitchen is below, she said. Guests must not see you. If they speak, you listen. If they ask, you answer. Otherwise, silence. There was no tour, no briefing, just a staircase. I descended. The kitchen was spotless, industrial. A team of 5 chefs in matching black jackets stood at attention. You're late, one of them muttered. I shrugged, settling into my station. That night we prepped ingredients I'd never seen before. A foam made from crushed petals, a broth labeled memory. Tiny herbs stored in vials with warning symbols. I didn't ask. At midnight, the woman in gray returned. Service begins. We wheeled out carts with white plates, each one etched with symbols. I wasn't told who was upstairs, but I caught glimpses. High heels, tuxedos, laughs that didn't sound drunk, more like rehearsed. Through a crack in the door, I saw a hand lift a plate. The fingers were pale with nails filed to exact shapes. A child giggled. Not happily. I looked away. Day 2, the theme changed. We were told to prepare dishes that reflect. One was called mirror soup. Clear broth in bowls with mirrors at the bottom. Guests were to see themselves before drinking. A man in a suit brought us a list of emotion pairings. Dish 1, guilt. Dish 2, obedience. Dessert, regret. Again, I didn't ask. That night, someone left the kitchen door ajar. I peeked. The dining hall had no windows. 12 guests sat in silence, wearing masks, white, gold, black. At the head sat a woman in red velvet, her fingers drumming on a glass shaped like an hourglass, and beside her was Diddy. I blinked, unsure. He laughed at something, but no one else did. Then the lights dimmed, and a spotlight hit the center of the room. 2 servers carried in a mirrored box. From it, steam escaped. Inside was something, human-shaped, still. The woman in red whispered, "Tonight we honor reflection." No applause, just silence. Day 3, we were told to create dishes for cleansing. The ingredients now came in unlabeled containers. I saw one of the chefs hesitate, sniff something, then cough violently. He was escorted out. A new chef replaced him within the hour. I asked where the ingredients were coming from. "Don't," another chef said. "Just cook." I began to feel watched. Cameras weren't obvious, but every corner had a flicker. Even the fridge had a lock that clicked at midnight. That night a guest entered the kitchen. It was a girl, maybe 14, wearing a white dress and gloves. She said nothing, just pointed at a dish. Then she whispered, "Don't drink the red one." She was gone before I could ask. On day 4, the woman in gray handed us black aprons. "Tonight is finale," she said. "The crown arrives." The kitchen buzzed with a fear no one voiced. I heard a chef mutter, "Last year someone didn't finish plating in time. He never came back. The crown." No one explained. At 11:59 p.m. we served the final dish, a dessert called Eclipse. Chocolate shell, inside smoke and a silver coin. "Place it on the tongue," the instructions said. "Speak nothing until the smoke clears." I didn't see what happened after. We were ordered back below, locked in. And that's when I heard it, screaming, but not from fear, from obedience. And upstairs someone began to sing. The air inside the estate did not carry scent. It held something more sterile, as if every emotion had been scrubbed from the walls. Sid walked slowly, flanked by silence, guided by gloved hands that gestured but never touched. The woman leading him never offered a name, only a look emptied of empathy filled with calculation. They passed halls adorned not with art but with symbols. Spirals mirrored numbers, crossed forks. Nothing spoke of home or humanity, just ritual. Sid's kitchen was not his. It was immaculate, untouched stainless steel, polished to a shine that burned his eyes. There were no knives, no cutting boards, no ingredients in any familiar sense. Only vacuum-sealed pouches labeled not with names, but feelings, submission, regret, stillness, warmth. Each pouch pulsed faintly, as if alive. "You will not cook, you will assemble," the assistant said, her voice smooth and flat. Sid opened a pouch labeled warmth. A thick amber liquid glistened inside, smelling faintly like ginger and burned sugar. It wasn't broth. It wasn't anything he could recognize. He reached for a spoon. There were none. Only a flat tool shaped like a spade. He began the prep, hand trembling. A chime rang. 5 figures entered, dressed in white robes with wide collars and no visible seams. They did not look at Sid. They did not speak at first. They moved in synchrony, as if in a practice dance. One lifted a bowl, turned it upside down, nothing spilled. Another sprinkled fine powder into a pattern shaped like an eye. Sid froze. They began to chant. "When she enters, place the sugar backwards. Do not speak if the man with the mirror watches." Grief must taste like forgetting. He didn't understand. He didn't dare ask. Then a man appeared. Sid recognized him instantly. Diddy. No entourage, no fanfare. He wore white, a robe without edges, and carried nothing but presence. He picked up an apple from the untouched bowl, dipped it in salt, bit once, then looked at Sid with eyes that saw too much. Then he laughed, quiet, amused, but joyless. Like he knew the punchline to a joke no one else survived. He left without a word. Sid stood still. The apple core lay half-eaten on the counter. No one moved to discard it. No one touched it. It sat like a warning. Later, in his small cot behind the pantry curtain, Sid found a photo. A girl with a white bow. The assistant beside her. A dessert cart behind them. On the back, a message. "She is ready for dessert." Sid's stomach turned. He looked again at the ingredient pouches. Now they had instructions. Submission open only in silence. Regret stir without heat. Stillness touch only with breath. That night he prepped alone. As he folded the purity foam, a soft breeze crossed the room. There were no windows. The lights dimmed to a dull rose. A new binder lay open on the center counter. No recipes, just sensations. Memory reduction soup, served with amnesia. Silence gelée, inhale only. Mirror dish, for the witness. Sid looked at his reflection in the oven door. It didn't look like him anymore. Paler, eyes wider, expression gone. A knock echoed without sound. The assistant returned, gliding in like a shadow. She placed a gloved finger to her lips. Then she handed him a tray. Velvet-lined. A single sugar key rested at the center, jagged and glinting. "She remembers too much," the assistant whispered. "You must fix that." Sid nodded, though he didn't understand. He worked the rest of the night. Alone, watched by nothing and everything. The house did not sleep, and neither did he. When morning came, it arrived not with sunlight, but a change in temperature. Cold. Intentional. Sid stood before a prep table filled with labeled emotions. He did not know what he was anymore, a chef, a servant, a pawn. But he remembered the look on Diddy's face, that smile, that knowing. He picked up a pouch labeled gratitude. It pulsed in his hand like a heartbeat not his own. The days blurred inside the estate like a painting left out in rain. Sid began to lose sense of time. Breakfast arrived before the hour made sense, and sleep was no longer marked by darkness, only by the absence of tasks. One morning a note was slid beneath his curtain. She dreams in colors. Adjust the portions. No name, no signature, just that single line. Sid read it again and again, then placed it into his apron. Later that afternoon he was summoned not by voice, but by light. A narrow beam from a hallway spotlight blinked twice, then turned green. The signal meant follow. He followed it to a room different from the others. No tiles, no steel, just wood aged and fragrant like a memory from a distant home. Inside was a piano, black untouched keys gleaming like teeth, and beside it the girl. She wore the same white bow. Her dress was long, slightly frayed at the hem. She sat stiffly, hands folded in her lap, not playing, not speaking, just waiting. A woman stood nearby, reading from a binder. She has responded well to the desserts, the woman said, not looking up. Her memory retention is below protocol, but compliance is at 94%. Sid cleared his throat. The woman turned. You may enter. He stepped in slowly, aware that every creak of the floorboard might mean something he didn't understand. She asked for something sweet, the woman added. Not the kind from pouches, the kind she remembers. Sid looked at the girl. Her eyes were not blank like before. They shimmered faintly like someone had relit a candle. Do you remember what she liked? He asked. She spoke of berries, the woman said, from before. Sid returned to the kitchen. He searched the cold storage and found a single pack labeled Nostalgia, Batch 3. It wasn't berries, but the scent was close strawberry, over lavender tinged with something bitter. He created a dish foam atop a brittle shell dusted with crystallized petals. No heat, no sound. When he returned, the girl had moved to the piano. Her fingers hovered over the keys but didn't press. He placed the dessert on a mirrored tray and knelt. She turned slowly. Is it real? She asked. Sid didn't answer. She took a bite. Her face changed. A moment passed, long and heavy, before she said, That's how the lake used to smell. Sid looked at the woman. She was smiling faintly. She's remembering again, she whispered. We must reduce her dosage, Sid asked. But no one responded. That night Sid lay awake. The estate hummed not with power but with ritual. Every whisper carried meaning, every corner held eyes. The next morning he found the girl gone. In her place, a bough folded neatly atop the piano. Beneath it, a card, phase complete. Initiate mirror protocol. Sid read it twice. Then he noticed the tray he'd brought had been cleaned, wiped, and returned to its shelf, but one spoon was missing. That same night, another note appeared. She remembers too well. We cannot risk the song. Sid didn't know what the song was, but he feared what would happen if she sang it. Somewhere deep in the estate, a melody echoed, soft, broken, and familiar. He wasn't sure, but he thought it sounded like goodbye. The following day, the routine fractured. Sid woke to find his door already open. A red tag hung from the handle, observation required. He dressed quickly, unsure if it was a summons or a warning. Outside the halls pulsed with an unnatural silence, the kind that thickens air. Guards more than usual stood at the intersections, dressed in gray faces, hidden by mirrored visors. He was led without word to a staircase he hadn't seen before. A heavy gate swung open, revealing a descent, carved into old stone. The further he went, the colder it became. At the bottom, a room of glass. Inside, Clara. She stood in the center, hands bound lightly by a cloth. She wasn't struggling. Just breathing, measured, composed. She reported an anomaly, a voice said. Sid turned. Dr. Calhoun, the head of facility integration. But her records disagree. She's never lied, Sid whispered. The doctor raised an eyebrow. No. But she may have remembered incorrectly. And down here, memory is currency. He nodded toward the glass. Your presence is requested. Reflection therapy begins in 2 minutes. Sid stepped inside. Clara's eyes met his. I told the truth, she said. I know. She gestured toward the mirrored wall. Ask what they did with room 17. Sid blinked. Ask them, she repeated. But he was pulled out before he could. Guards dragged her away. A single drop of blood stained the floor where she stood. The next hour blurred. Sid was shown footage. Training assessments, they said. Girls lined up answering questions. Their voices flat, their eyes distant. He recognized the girl with the white bow. She was younger in this footage, smiling. She said, I'm from the lake house. The interviewer responded, that memory does not serve the program. A red light blinked. The footage cut. Dr. Calhoun returned. Do you understand now why dosage matters? Sid didn't answer. Too much memory and they unravel. Too little and they resist. That night Sid found another note under his door. The bow was not the first, nor the last. He wandered into the archive room. Floor-to-ceiling drawers labeled with code names. He searched for reflection. Inside photos, notes, a hand-drawn map. One door circled in red, sub-level 3, containment wing. He knew then he had to see it. It took 2 days to find a way down. A service chute in the laundry wing led to the old ventilation grid. He crawled through the dust and heat, emerging behind a storage crate in a corridor marked Authorized Only. Sub-level 3 was colder than the others, not just in temperature, in feeling. He reached the containment wing, 6 doors, 6 names, 1 open. Inside the girl with the white bow. She looked at him, this time no fear, only recognition. I waited, she said. Sid knelt beside her. Why did they bring you back? She handed him a paper, a drawing hers, a piano, a lake, a house, and beneath it all the words memory never left. She whispered, the song is the key, they fear it. He held her hand. We'll find the melody he promised. And behind them the door slid shut. Sid didn't sleep. His mind replayed the white bow girl's words, the song is the key. He returned to his room just before curfew. Another note awaited him this time, etched into the wood of his desk, barely visible, unless the light hit it just right. Play the silence. In the center was a crudely drawn piano. The music room had long been sealed off. A sign on the door claimed acoustic renovations, but everyone knew it had been silent for months. Sid slipped in with a borrowed keycard, courtesy of the janitorial schedule he'd memorized. Dust lay thick across the black and ivory keys. He sat. The first note echoed longer than it should have, not a sound but a vibration, a pulse. He played a sequence the girl had hummed, CGEA. The back wall trembled, then parted, a hidden door. Behind it a spiral staircase led downward. He descended slowly past murals of forgotten faces, smudged, erased, but faintly familiar. At the bottom a chamber with velvet-lined walls, a single chair, and a recording device still blinking red. Clara's voice played, they want erasure, not correction. They fear continuity because it remembers. Another click. I've marked the locations. If you hear this, I failed. Sid copied the tape, pocketed it. He was leaving when he heard it, a melody soft, sung by a dozen young voices in harmony. He followed the sound into another corridor, lit by violet lamps. The path bent sharply and opened into a dormitory hidden deep beneath the academy. 17 beds, all occupied. The girls lay in near-perfect stillness. Tubes connected their temples to a central device humming softly. He found the girl with the white bow at the end. She opened her eyes. Why didn't you run, she asked. I'm here for the end, he replied. Her lips curled into something almost like a smile. You'll need the final verse, she sang, a lullaby. Foreign yet familiar. The machine whined, sparks flickering from its seams. Lights blinked rapidly, a warning tone filling the space. Sid grabbed her hand. We're getting out. He ripped the connector free. She gasped, clutched her chest, but stayed conscious. One by one he moved through the rows, freeing them all. Sirens blared now. Steel doors groaned open. Footsteps thundered in the halls. Then Clara appeared, bruised, limping, but alive. "You found them. They found me," Sid answered. Clara handed him a key with a bird insignia. "The east tunnel. It leads beyond the perimeter. You have 5 minutes." He didn't ask how she knew. There was no time. The escape was chaos. Girls stumbling, some unable to walk without help. Sid and Clara each carried 2. Alarms wailed. Automated commands echoed above them. Protocol breach. Initiate sanitation. They reached the tunnel. A service elevator waited at the end, jammed open with a fire axe. They squeezed in. Clara pressed the key into the console. The elevator dropped like a stone. For 30 seconds only breath and heartbeat filled the silence. Then light. A valley beyond the fence. A transport truck idling. A driver stepped out. A woman in white. "I'm here for them," she said. "I was once like them." Sid nodded. Clara said this would work. The woman looked at Clara. She gave up everything. Clara didn't respond. One by one, the girls boarded the truck. The white bow girl paused. "You remembered the song," she said to Sid. He touched her shoulder. "You never forgot it." The truck rumbled to life, disappearing into the mist. Behind them, the facility shuddered one final alarm before darkness returned. Sid turned to Clara. "What now?" Clara stared at the horizon. "Now the world hears the truth." And with that they vanished into the tree line, not as fugitives, but as keepers of the melody that could no longer be silenced. The world shifted in those silent moments, after the truck disappeared into the mist. Sid and Clara stood alone at the mouth of the forest. The path behind them, now sealed in darkness, led to the nightmare they had barely escaped. The air was cool, but their skin still carried the heat of urgency of sirens that echoed like ghost calls. They hadn't spoken. They didn't need to. Sid finally broke the silence. "We're not safe yet." Clara nodded. "No, but we're not alone either." She handed Sid a weather-worn satchel. Inside were papers, recordings, and encrypted drives, everything Clara had gathered over the years. Names, dates, schematics, and testimony. "Take this to Patel," she said. "He's already opened a case." "Cash," Patel. Sid blinked. Clara's lips were tight. The only one not bought. They split paths. Clara would disappear for now, tracking down others who once worked at the academy but had vanished. Sid, meanwhile, would cross borders. 3 days later, he arrived in Geneva. The International Tribunal for Children's Protection had set up an emergency panel. Sid, under a pseudonym, presented the evidence. Judges leaned forward. The hall fell into a hush as Clara's audio recordings played. "Erasure is violence," her voice said. And this facility was not built to protect, it was built to erase. Shock rippled through the room. Testimonies followed. One girl, now in safe hands, testified remotely, face blurred, voice synthesized. But her words shattered glass. "They told us forgetting was healing, but healing means remembering who you are." The gallery stood. News broke within hours. Headlines across continents. Black Veil operation exposed. Whispers of white secret facility uncovered. Oprah's academy under international scrutiny. Dignitaries distanced themselves. Sponsors withdrew. Oprah's team released a statement calling it a targeted smear, but Patel's investigation gained momentum. Footage from the underground chamber aired globally. Blurred faces, clinical lights, tubes like vines. It was undeniable. The world gasped. In South Africa, protests ignited outside OLAG's gates. Former students demanded audits. Journalists hounded board members. UNICEF issued an immediate call for investigation into all celebrity-funded educational initiatives. Then came the arrest. 1 week after the tribunal, an international warrant was issued for multiple executives, including those tied to the original funding chain. Oprah was subpoenaed. Lungi, the housekeeper turned witness, had fled, but was found in Angola, protected by an NGO. She confirmed Clara's timeline. She never hurt us, Lungi said. She just saw too much. And then Clara resurfaced. She walked into Patel's office with a USB around her neck. It held the original system schematics maps of every hidden room, every record, every transgression. It also held something else, a video. A single recording from inside Reflection Recovery. The footage showed a small girl, head bowed, singing a lullaby into the darkness. A figure entered the frame. The child flinched. It cut to black. The tribunal didn't need more. Within a month, Aulag was shut down. UN forces escorted the remaining staff out. South African child protection agencies took over. The 17 girls were formally recognized as victims of psychological and physical manipulation. The world was furious and heartbroken. But healing had begun. Sid never returned to the States. Instead, he joined Clara in rebuilding a new kind of school, open, transparent, and protected by international human rights observers. The girl with the white bow. She became its first student teacher. Her name was May, and every morning before the lessons began, she played the melody, not as a warning, but as a remembrance of what they had survived, of what they had reclaimed, and of the silence that would never again hold power over them. The aftermath rippled across the world like thunder after lightning. The tribunal's judgment had struck hard, but what came next was the reckoning no one anticipated. 2 weeks later, Washington, D.C., Kash Patel stepped into the House Judiciary Committee chamber, not as a political figure, but as the man who helped expose one of the darkest networks operating under the guise of philanthropy. Cameras clicked, eyes watched. This wasn't about headlines anymore. This was about systemic failure. They used our trust, Patel began standing before the microphone. They weaponized benevolence, and worse, they did it with help. Behind him, charts lined the walls. Names, wire transfers, institutional affiliations. It wasn't just Aulag, it was global. Investigations spread to 6 other countries. Other academies, NGOs, shelters most funded by names, once heralded as icons. The fallout grew viral. Oprah's legal defense team fought to suppress the documents, but whistleblowers multiplied. Back in South Africa, Aulag's ruins had become a memorial. The once pristine halls were empty, stripped of polished banners and glossy promises. Instead, plaques lined the walls, each one carved with a name, initials only of those who'd endured. May returned to visit. Now, nearly 18, she walked with confidence, no longer the silent ghost of her former self. She approached the reflection room, sealed now, flowers draped across its door. "I'm not afraid of this place anymore," she whispered. Journalists surrounded her, but May didn't speak for headlines. She spoke for herself and those still silent. The crime wasn't silent, she said. The crime was pretending it never happened. Meanwhile, Clara and Sid's rebuilt school, named Akasha Haven, was operational in Tanzania. Students came from across Africa and beyond. International observers documented every step. Transparency wasn't a slogan, it was policy. Every child was treated like an individual, not a case file. And every adult who entered was vetted not once, but 4 times. Backgrounds, motivations, patterns. They had learned the hard way. 3 months later, Geneva UN Special Session Kash Patel presented a final resolution, the Children's Shield Accord, a sweeping international mandate to oversee celebrity-linked institutions, enforce child-centered audits, and prosecute exploitation as a global crime. The accord passed 168 to 3. China abstained. The U.S. signed under a new bipartisan coalition. Sid sat in the gallery beside Clara. May's voice echoed over a live feed, broadcasting the closing ceremony from Akasha Haven. She played the melody one final time. It was no longer the song of captivity. It was a hymn of rebirth. Back in Los Angeles, the entertainment industry reeled. Netflix shelved Oprah's final docuseries. Brand deals vanished. Celebrities scrubbed endorsements. One by one, figures distanced themselves. Some whispered about Diddy, about what else Lil Wayne had uncovered. But Wayne wasn't chasing exposure. He was deep in the Caribbean funding safe houses under aliases. Gene Deal published his memoir. It became an instant bestseller. Title, I Was There, the Rooms We Don't Speak Of. And Ava Baron Combs, she testified via sealed affidavit, confirmed as one of the unnamed survivors. Her story was brutal but necessary. The testimony helped convict 6 men and opened 10 more investigations. She never returned to public life, but one day Sid received a letter. No signature, just a photo, a field, a breeze, a girl with a notebook in hand painting a sunrise. The caption, I'm writing again. Sid smiled. Not all stories end in ruins. Some become the roots of revolutions.